Todd says, not real smooth, but would continue. And Tom would depend on who the person was.
Who the person.
For sure. For sure. So, I know from working with our clients as well that they often have this fear, and operating for 90 days with no impact to the business would not be possible. Laura says after about a few days of getting through the written processes. So, yeah, that pause time to go, oh, okay. Well, how does this work again? And try to find the instructions to get things done, that kind of thing. Very good. Kim, start us out by helping us understand more about this fear and why it matters even more than we think.
Absolutely. I would say, one of the biggest challenges I see owners underestimate is really just not anticipating or having a plan. When this potentially happens. And I kind of think about the people aspect of your business is not any different than any other part of your disaster planning or your business continuity. And as we know, the people aspect can have catastrophic impacts on your productivity, on culture, on morale, on leadership continuity, and certainly on your goal achievements.
Exactly. I love those points, and our ability to deliver to our clients is so important, right? And if it is a key person, kind of by definition, that's going to impact our ability to deliver services, products, whatever it is that we do to our clients. Or it slows down our growth if it's, a salesperson or something like that. If we've got goals around that, that can be, having the right salespeople is a big deal, a very big deal. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that it also pulls us back into the details, just like Laura was saying in the chat. Okay, we got to go find the instructions to do this thing if we haven't done it for a long time. It pulls us back into the details of the business. So while that might not have an immediate impact, it does have an impact in that we're not looking ahead to the next thing. We're not planning for what we want, where we want the business to go. And so it can really shift that, as well as, create some stress for us as the business owner. So succession planning and thinking about our people resources protects both today's performance and the future value of the business. I'm curious, Kamala, where do you see owners most underestimate the risk of not planning?
I would say, it's really around not having a plan at all. As I mentioned earlier, if you're not thinking about or anticipating that someone, might leave, or, something happens and they have to go out for an extended period of time for illness or, family emergency, something like that. And I was thinking about what Laura said, even if you have to jump back in and refresh, like, how do I do these processes, or how do I do this role? That assumes that hopefully all your processes are documented, right? And so I think just the importance of documenting a plan and being prepared for it versus reacting when it happens.
Yeah, yeah. You know, one of the things that is important about that, when we have those written down processes, it does help us, have somebody else fill in, ask another team member to, instead of it, necessarily being us all the time. And so that can create some stability in and of itself. So I love that. I love being able to actually plan for who's going to be the leader next, right? How do I continue to think about my team and who I want to cultivate and grow into that leadership? The other thing I think about is that as business owners, we deliver the most value only when our people are aligned and motivated. So how do we do that? How do we get our people aligned and motivated, right? Well, I think first we need to have a clear business vision. And we need to communicate it to our team. And not just once, but frequently. tell them about where we're going and why it's important, because that helps them. It creates a context. But the other thing is that we need to find that sweet spot. That sweet spot is where the business vision and the individual team members' vision overlap, right? So that is where fulfillment lives. It's where motivation lives. It's where alignment lives, right? And team members, when you ask them about their vision, it's something that we forget to do, right? Well, here's the business vision. Here's where we're going. Well, where are you going? What's important to you? What's unfolding in your life, or where do you want it to go in the next years? And when we ask that question, not only are we getting information and finding this sweet spot, but they're also feeling cared for. They're feeling heard. They feel like they're valued. They're not just a number in the scheme of things, right? And then we find that place, that sweet spot, and that gives the business energy, action, commitment. It's not about convincing people to do what you want. It's about finding where their future and your future overlap, and the business overlaps. One question I encourage people to ask: how does your role, ask their people, how does your role support where the business is going and where you want to grow over the next few years? So you can engage them in finding this sweet spot, and then use that, use that to help you get where you want to go. Camilla?
Laura, I know,
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
Laura, I know I've found that most in most successful companies that I've worked with, that they have that alignment, like you were describing. There's really a clear line of sight for all employees on, what the company's trying to achieve, what the vision and the purpose is, what the goals are for the year, and then how my work every day as an employee contributes to that or has impact to that. And I think that's really the nice way that leaders can link or loop in a performance management process into goal setting, into that alignment piece that you were describing. Performance management should not be a once a year kind of thing where you're doing your performance reviews, that kind of thing. It should be certainly an ongoing process. And I think if you're doing performance management well, whatever your cycle is for goal setting and planning for your business, it's involving employees in that and making sure that you're sharing what the intentions and what the goals are, and even involving them in that process. And then as they're creating their plans for the year and expectations for the year, they're setting goals that align directly with what they do every day, and the work that they're doing will drive and have direct impact or a direct tie with achievement of the goals of the company. And I think there's opportunities to have those discussions all along the way. Hopefully, as business owners, you're doing regular one-on-ones with all of your team members, and you're talking about the progress of the work, and also through that they have the chance to really raise any areas that they may need help on or may need support on. And that's your opportunity then to start building some skill development into the performance management cycle as well.
Yeah, yeah. You hear this phrase called quiet quitting, right? And I think that sends fear into my heart as a business owner, into other business owners' hearts. It's like, by definition, it's they're disengaged and you don't know it. And maybe it takes a while to figure that out. But, if, that's such a danger, because we really need everybody to be on board and go in the same direction and helping the company be successful. And, obviously life happens and things can get in the way. But when we have that sweet spot defined and they're engaged in that, I think they're much more likely to let us know if things are out of sync. Or maybe we will see if things are out of sync if we're having those kinds of conversations. So it seems to me, when people really step up when they see how their future connects with the future of the business.
Most definitely. And when I was thinking about what you were just saying, discussing about quiet quitting, disengagement, there's a lot of different ways to be able to track and assess if someone's starting to get disengaged. If they normally, if they're normally, if their personality changes at work, right? There might be some things going on that maybe they're withdrawing or they're a little less talkative or interactive than they normally are. Oftentimes you see it in attendance, right? People might start calling out more or coming to work late, or doing those sort of things. So there's certainly triggers that you can watch for that can help you manage disengagement as well. But certainly, as I described, having those regular check-ins and one-on-ones with your team members is a great way to stay on top of that and anticipate where that might be happening, so you can again prepare for it and hopefully re-engage them.
Yeah, yeah. Another question for you all, and you can put these in chat. How often do you intentionally talk with your team about their future vision? So how often do you intentionally talk with your team or your team members really about their future vision? Yeah, Tom put a comment in about body language can really show disengagement too. Yeah, for sure. Watching how it's like something's going on with them. And I think
Exactly.
we have to listen to our intuition, right? We have to listen to our intuition. We think, I think something's going on with them, and actually follow up and ask and give them an opportunity to let you know. Okay, so how often do you talk with your team about their future vision? And Laura says
Like
at
the
least quarterly.
Yeah, popular
Um,
answer looks like about every 90
Quarter.
days or so.
That's impressive, you guys.
That's good.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, many times when I've asked that question, I've seen like either never or maybe once a year, right? So that's great that you're keeping it front and center.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Love that. So let's dive into succession planning a little bit more.
Sure. So I'd like to just chat with you all about why I think it really matters as owners and things to think about as it relates to succession planning. I think about this process like any other aspect of your business. The people aspect does require short-term and long-term planning as well. And if
Mm.
you have a well-structured plan for your business and leadership succession, it really helps you avoid potential disruptions and helps preserve the legacy of your business. It also ensures that business continuity that we've been talking about, and it helps to have more smooth transitions when key people do choose to leave or retire, or maybe someone gets promoted into a new role, or even has a life crisis that pulls them out of work. I've always used the adage, or believed in the adage that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And this becomes painfully apparent if one of your critical leaders or players chooses to leave, most definitely. Laura, as I was preparing, I was thinking about a recent client I've been working with, and that's kind of a real life example of this. It's a business owner, and they own three different distinct businesses, and they're just getting the third one off the ground right now, and they're just about 4 months into it. So they're devoting a lot of their time on that third business getting built up and structured and getting organized and ready to launch. And in one of their other businesses, so they have leadership teams obviously in those other businesses to run those. And in one of those businesses, the CEO left and not giving a whole lot of notice, just had some life things going on and ended up having to leave. And so what's happened for that business owner is because of that unexpected and unprepared, and then really not necessarily having someone in the ranks ready to step in and fill that, it's pulled that owner back into having to manage that business on more of a day-to-day basis, and has really, kind of taken them away from growing the new business that they were getting off the ground and starting, and having to go back into, putting their CEO hat on in that that other business as well. And so, that's I think a decent example of just how by not doing this and not preparing for it, how it can pull you right in many directions and kind of spread you thin. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and Tom in particular, having that bench strength is so important. Tom sold his main business, I don't know, a year and a half ago, something like that, and it was a fabulous thing. But having that bench strength was something that they really looked at when they were doing the due diligence about, okay, does the business still operate without Tom in the picture, right? And so how do you make sure that that's happening? So it's a great example of there was at least part of the planning that wasn't well managed in the company the example that you gave, because they had someone leave like that and it's like, ooh, it's unstable. So, and there wasn't anybody else ready to at least even temporarily step into that. So,
Most definitely.
love
And
that.
really, the best time to start planning for business succession is about 3 to 5 years before your expected transition. This really allows for the business to maximize their value, to really strengthen their financials, of course, and to ensure that leadership readiness that we're talking about today. I think this process really helps future-proof your business by helping you prepare for and organize for disruptions. It allows time for knowledge transfer. And it also is a process, as we described in the development side of it, of really boosting or improving your employees' morale and engagement. One of the things I've told leaders that I've supported doing succession planning is the process is really about perpetuating your business, that we as leaders have responsibility to ensure the success of the future of our company. And succession planning is just one of those steps in ensuring that you have a strong talent base that's prepared for longer term stability and helps you prepare for growth and transition. There's a recent study that I read that related to this, and it was interesting and relevant to our discussion today. It was conducted by Nationwide Insurance, and it was in their 2024 study of economic impact. And their results of their study suggested that only 30% of small business owners have a succession plan,
Mhm.
compared to 2% of mid-market businesses. So, right, we have lots of hats that we wear, lots of balls spinning, and so sometimes it's not something that we immediately think to focus on.
Yeah. Say those numbers again. There was a blip on it. The small business owners percentage was, sorry, lost her altogether. Okay, I'm sure she'll be back. When when a succession planning process is in place and operational, the owner stops being the bottleneck in the business and starts leading the business instead of holding it all together, which I think is really important, right? And so when, oh, I just need to watch for her to come back on. Okay, oh, there she is.
For some reason.
Yeah, yeah. I was saying, can you say there was a blip in the video or on Zoom between, what are those percentages again?
Absolutely. So the study was conducted by Nationwide Insurance, and it suggested that in small businesses, only 30% of businesses have a succession plan, compared to 62% of mid-market businesses.
So kind of half. Got it.
Mhm.
Got it. So, Kamala, which step in this process do you see owners struggle with most?
Oftentimes, it's thinking about not just what you need in the here and the now, but really what your future needs are, right? We should always be anticipating how's our business going to evolve or grow? What roles or skill sets might we need, 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now? Not just thinking about the current situation and kind of anticipating what some of those capabilities or skill sets or knowledge that your business is going to need down the road.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I was thinking about this about the owner being the bottleneck. And it's something that I struggle with. I know that my clients struggle with it. And so I want to bring in delegation. Uh, what does it take to do it? So we need to constantly be identifying where we're the bottleneck in our business and hand off what we can. There's some things that we can't and shouldn't hand off. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we should. And to remember that delegation is not abdication. So we're not giving it away. We're not divorcing ourselves completely from it. We're just enabling somebody on our team to take that over, and then we get the information that we need to know everything's going well, and so that we can make good decisions and things like that. So it's not abdication, it's true leadership, and it's also a demonstration of trust. And like you were saying earlier, Kamala, it's about building that strength of the team so that, the business itself is more resilient. And succession planning fails without delegations and the systems to support it. So some key principles for successful delegation. So the first one I've got is clearly defining what success looks like. So this is different than saying, here's all the steps that need to be done. This is, what does success look like? When this task is being done well, here's what it looks like. Here's the outcomes. Here's the circumstances that will be true. And when we can define that well, that's kind of the first step and the first thing that we can communicate to people. Here's what success looks like. The second part is clarifying what kind of information you need in order to know that things are going well, and or that the information that you need to use to do something else with. So what can happen a lot of times when we delegate something is that we hand it off and then we don't know anything, and then we get nervous, right? It's like, I had a hold of that. I knew what was going on with that. Now I don't. And so there's either information you need temporarily to get comfortable with the fact that you're not doing it, or it's just information that you need to know that it's going well, or that it's not going well. And then one of the other things is understanding the motivation. So you can share your motivation for wanting to hand it off, but also discovering or co-discovering with who you're handing it off to what their motivation is. So they might be wanting to learn more. They want maybe more responsibility. It might help them develop a skill or capability that they want for their future. Remember, back to that sweet spot of the visions overlapping. So co-discovering with them what their motivation is for taking on this new task. And then after you've handed it off, then don't just drop it and run. Do a check-in. Discover what needs to be adjusted. Coach them. Another thing that I see happen with business owners a lot of the time, and other leaders as well, is that they delegate something and then it doesn't go well and then they take it back. And most of the time, that's not the greatest thing to do because it really does need to be handed off. So it's more about expect that there's a learning. There's going to be a gap there. There's going to need to be tweaks because the way that you do it isn't necessarily the way that they're going to do it. And we need to let go of some of those details sometimes. But also we need to realize that if we are, in unconscious competency, we don't even know really how we do something because we have it all kind of installed in our brains, and we no longer really recognize what the steps are, or what we need to think about, or what we need to anticipate, things like that. So to go back to that helping educate someone is oftentimes we miss things. So we have to recognize it's a process. It doesn't happen instantaneously. So Kamala, you may have some other tips on good delegation.
Yeah, a couple of tips come to mind. I certainly think about using situational leadership when you are delegating. And really what I mean by that is everybody like approaches work in different ways, right? Some people, like I'm the type of person where if you give me the big picture, give me what's the end goal, and I'll figure it out. And I like to kind of be resourceful and get in there and kind of figure it out on my own. But other people are like they want all the details of the steps. What's step one? What's step two? And they want to check in with you regularly to make sure they're on track. They need more ongoing feedback, that kind of thing. So being situational about how you delegate. Different people are going to have different needs in that process, and so making sure that you meet the person kind of where they are. In that process as you're teaching them a new task. And another thing I think about in delegation, it really helps you ensure that you don't have one point of failure in a key process or a particular responsibility or task. And as we've already talked about, it builds that sense of redundancy in your key processes. You never want just one person to know how to do something. And so delegation helps really reinforce that as well. And how I see it utilized in the performance management cycle that we've been talking about and just helping develop people is it pairs so nicely, with that, because it helps distribute the work in the organization. It helps improve decision making and responsibility more efficiently. It also helps create an accountable chain of authority to really move the work further down into the organization while you're also increasing people's skills and capabilities deeper into the organizations, not just at that leadership level. It helps prepare employees for greater responsibility in the organization as well. And it gives you a chance to gauge their capability to do that and their readiness to do that.
Yeah, I love it. Really helps us develop those future leaders. And one of the things I always love to do with delegation too is, describe what success looks like and use it as a great opportunity to get that process documented. And I always like to ask the person I'm delegating to document what the process is. Ask me as many questions as you want, whatever you need, but get it documented. And then it gives me another way to give them feedback. Oh, okay, good. I got to read that. I get to say, oh, there might be a missing step here, or how are you handling this part of it? And then we have something written down too that can serve in case that person is not available. And then it's helps us continue to develop a business that can run without us or less of us, right? So that if we step out or we're going to go on vacation, we can really do those things.
I think it can also help you potentially improve your processes as well, because one person's been doing it this way for a long time, and as you bring on another person to teach them how to do it or to look at how to do that, they might ask the question of, well, why do we do it this way, right? And so it kind of broadens or might be an opportunity for you to create a more efficient process or reduce the steps in the process or whatnot by having another pair of eyes kind of look at it and give you input on it.
Right. Job sharing and leadership roles be a feasible option to help protect against this threat.
Can you repeat that? You broke up just a little bit.
Oh, can job sharing and leadership roles be a feasible option to help?
Most definitely. I think, again, if you have someone who does a job, part-time and then there's another person that covers that, that's a great way to kind of share in that responsibility and make sure you have that redundancy and that overlap. And we were just talking about that as we were preparing for this call, that you have a person that they team up and pair up
That's right. That's right.
to do some of the administrative responsibilities for your business. And a couple of ideas that I've helped businesses impact are doing job swaps. Also, where if you can, and it's a little bit more difficult to do in a smaller organization, but it might work where you truly have a person swap a job and do the other person's role for a period of time. That could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be longer than that. But that's another way to just really spend some time in the other person's shoes, as well as learning and cross training, in your business. Another thing in larger companies that I've worked with that we created is we called them gig jobs. And so think about the gig economy as we know it today, right? But we did it internally. And so we would create like these temporary assignments where, and you could probably even do it in a smaller business as well, where maybe there is a specific project or a particular task that's maybe done once a month or something like that, where you could have one of your other employees gig in that and almost serve as a temporary resource for that process or for that time of month, where they get to learn that process and practice that and then actually do that for a period of months to reinforce that learning and reinforce that training.
Hmm. Cool ideas. Cool ideas. I think that gets a lot of creativity about, there's not one way to do this, right?
Mhm.
That we can try different things, and maybe it's a great way to, even bring it to our team. How would this look? How might you use this idea? What makes sense, and what do you want to try? Because, experimenting can really, you find things that you just don't know that are there because this is how we've always done it here. We all have heard that before, and yet when we get somebody new involved, it changes and we learn more, and we discover efficiencies or new value that we can add that we never even thought of before. So I love that. Let's talk a bit about the consequences and the benefits.
Absolutely. So, jumping back to defining succession planning, it's really just a strategic process to identify critical or leadership roles in your organization, and develop internal talent to fill those roles. And there are certainly, as you described, both positive and negative consequences of doing it or not doing it. Certainly, some of the negative things of having the absence of strategic succession planning is the loss of a strong leader, as we talked a lot about today. That can lead to employee as well as customer instability or concern. The business and financial impact of the position being vacant for an extended period of time. Going back to that question we asked earlier, if someone left, and the position was vacant for 90 days, what kind of impact would that have on you or the business? And certainly I think about where we are right now with our economy and just the unpredictability of our job market right now. And I always have seriously but joked with clients that I've supported or businesses that I've been in. You post the job and you pray that good people apply, and that's not necessarily the best strategy, right? It's certainly having a pipeline and a network, and knowing that you might have the skills to be able to replace someone. A couple of other negatives by not planning for your people business is certainly delay of your goals or delay of projects. Again, if someone is plucked out for unplanned reasons, you may not be able to get the work done. And certainly as people leave, you have that knowledge loss, right? It's up here in their brain and it's not documented or it hasn't been shared with others. And so when people leave, they walk out with that capability or that knowledge within your business as well.
Right.
But the,
Yeah.
the flip side to that, though, when you do intentional succession planning, one, it keeps your employees informed about the business and potential leadership development opportunities that they might have that might align, as we talked about, with their vision or their career aspirations. It really helps you prepare a contingency plan just in case your plan A doesn't work or kind of falls apart. Maybe you had somebody in mind, but they've moved on and you had done some training with them, but they're in a different role now and you need them to be focused on that versus pulling them out to cover for this gap that you have. Succession planning also links directly to business continuity planning. It really encourages both staff and leadership development. It certainly, as we talked about, has a really positive impact on staff morale because employees then know, where the organization is going. They know that you're invested in them and that they can see a future, for growth of their own career in your business as well.
Yeah. One of the things I love to do when helping business owners plan is to look at the organizational chart in terms of roles, especially for the people in the company that hold multiple roles, primarily the business owner, but also some of the other leaders that hold multiple roles, and to really tease those out. What are these different roles? Because what it does is it enables us to see as the company is growing and changing which roles we want to hand off. So, and which ones we want to keep. And and match that up not only to ourselves as the business owner, but to the other leaders. And to say, have in our mind, when we get to this size, we're going to want to add a person and this is going to be their role. Or they're going to wear these three hats. And then as we grow, we're going to take one of those hats away and give it to somebody else. And it separates it from the personalities and lets you look at it as a company. And so I think that plays into succession planning as well.
Yeah,
So,
Tom had a question or
oh,
suggestion about could we talk about how job security fear prevents buy-in for succession planning, and I think that's a real one, Tom, for sure. Employees oftentimes think if
yeah.
you're training someone else on how to do their role or their responsibilities, that potentially that person is going to replace them. And I think that's a real fear that people have, right? But I think it's how you explain it to them. And it's also helping them see where their future is in the organization. So if I and it's also giving them reassurance in some ways of if I have someone cross-trained to do your job, then it's much easier when you go on vacation or you get sick and you need to be out for an extended period of time. The work's not sitting here waiting for you when you come back. Someone has been able to do that work and keep up, for you. So I think that's it's how you frame it with the employees, and it's also making sure that part of those conversations are about getting past their fear of their current job and saying, how do we help prepare you for other roles and responsibilities? What are your interests and what are your aspirations of things you'd like to do? And I even talk about it, even if it's not with your in your own organization or own company, like what are goals that you have? What are skills that you want to learn? And maybe there's ways that we could give you insight into that or give you some opportunities to practice that within our business that help you build those skills for the future.
It's a great question. Laura says it can be similar to the AI conversation, give you more freedom to grow. Same thing, right? That's also job security concern around AI. Is AI going to take over my job? So it's a very similar concern. And yet the same way to engage those is like, well, what can we automate or what can we have this AI do that will free up you up to do something different and or something even more valuable to the organization. Instead of making you less valuable, it can actually make you more valuable because we're, making sure we're honing in on the things that are kind of mindless and making sure we're taking advantage of your human intelligence, right? Love that, Laura. Thank you for that. So how many hats are you currently wearing? And which one or two should remain with you as the business grows? So that's a great question for you guys to think about. Not necessarily, you can put it in chat if you want, but to think about as you're thinking about your succession planning. How many hats are you really wearing? What are those hats? Which ones would you give up? Which ones do you need to give up right now? Which ones do you need to give up in the future? Which ones do you really want to keep? What does that look like for you and your other leaders in your company? Yes, because succession planning is a growth strategy, not a contingency plan, or at least we want it to be a growth strategy, right? Cool. So how do we get started, Kamala?
So this is the process as well. And so there certainly are critical steps. The first one really is to create or update job descriptions for your leadership roles or critical roles that you have in the organization. That really ensures that what are the needs of your business today, but also I've talked about what are your future needs as well. Next step would be to think about or research upcoming or future skills your business might need. And back to the AI discussion, AI is a great way to that's a great question to pose to prompt your chat GPT to see what future skills, and you can just actually put in the job title, and it'll create some good suggestions for you. Another recommendation that I make to businesses is to create a success profile for the role. And what I mean by that, that's really beyond the job description itself. The job description talks about the responsibilities and that you expect of the role and what are some of the qualifications, those kind of things. But a success profile really thinks about if a person was highly successful in this role, and maybe the person that's doing the role is, right? Or maybe they're not, and there's certain things you would want the person to be doing. It's really talking about what are those skills, what are those knowledge and abilities that the person in this role, in order to be successful and be doing the job at full capacity, need to have. And it could be personality traits, it could be educational background, it could be technical skills that they need to have. There's so many different things that define success in a role. It could be how they
even
get
interactions between that person and the other team members and the business
absolutely.
owner, and what does that look like, right?
Absolutely. How they engage and how they get along with their team is one of those critical factors. That's another one that AI could help you with. Just again, a great prompt, great way to use to help with your knowledge of that. Laura, you talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago, but I think it's important for leaders and for owners to think about their organizational design. Think about their structure, as you described, kind of what's your current structure, but then what do you think your future needs are going to be? And maybe plot that out and think about a sample org structure, currently, and then maybe what you need a year from now, what you need maybe 3 years from now or 5 years from now, depending on what your plans are, for your business and how you're going to evolve it, whether you're going to grow it, whether you're going to try to sell it, whatever. It's thinking about readying your organization for the future. Next steps would certainly be to identify which roles will have the biggest impact, like we've talked about, if it went unfilled for a period of time, because those might become your critical roles. And sometimes those aren't leadership roles. Those oftentimes can be, frontline roles that if that person was pulled off the production line, it would be painful. And then once you kind of identify some of those needs and those processes, then it's really actually assessing your current talent against those. What is the current capabilities of certain people in their roles? What are their strengths? What are they working on? What are they training up on? Where are some of the gaps that they might have? And then certainly talking with your own leadership team about their interest and their career desires and what their intentions and even time horizons, I think, are an important part of that discussion. Oftentimes I see leaders shy away from the time horizon discussion, but that really gives you some insight into do you have potential of, so that someone wants to either do something different. Could that be in your organization or somewhere else that they might, consider going based on what their time horizon might be for a change in a job? We've been talking and kind of reiterating the importance of documenting key processes that you have. That not only allows you to better cross-train, but it can be really helpful when you have to bring a new person in, or that you have a new person that has to step into that role. As we talked about, you have those documents to reference for training and for building knowledge. And then incorporating professional development planning into your performance management process. It doesn't have to be an additional process. You can actually incorporate it in and just, simply ask as part of your performance, what are your career goals, for the next year? What skills do you want to learn, or what role in the company would you like to cross-train into that you have interest in? It's as simple as that. Or that your employees know about this process and they understand kind of where their part is or where they stand in that process. Oftentimes I find businesses, they might do this process, but they keep it a secret. They're not transparent about it. And so then again, that sort of creates some disengagement in the organization.
Yeah, there's so much richness here. I love, love, love it. And I guess one of my thoughts is pick something, pick one or two important things for you and start there. Um, we're always here as a resource to help you with, okay, what's the next one after that? But so start small, start intentionally, find something to delegate, take your list from Kamala and make some changes because there's always more we can do. I know, but pick out the important things and know that Focus Directions is here and Kamala is here. We particularly have a really great delegation tool. We'd love to teach you. We can help you with accountability and leadership development, skill development, things like that, as well as just work, the ability to work on your business and make the time for that. Instead of only in your business, which can happen a lot of the time. So I have one question for you guys, and we're going to do some time for Q&A, and that is, what is one action you'll take in the next 6 months to reduce your key person risk in your business? So write it down. What's one action you'll take in the next 6 months?
Do we want them to share that in the chat?
If you want to, you can. I won't make you, but if you want to share, we'd love to hear it. And as soon as you're done with that, let me know what questions you all have. We have a little bit of time. We can talk about, what we discussed today or anything else you have that you want to talk about that's all about business, right?
And Laura, I would add that many of the techniques and things that I described today, I also have templates for a lot of that. So it's not like you have to start from scratch. If there's something that we, could help you with, certainly can share some of those templates with people as well.
Very good. That's awesome. That is right. All right. It's got an action to share. I will ask you guys. And I know there's a bunch of you on that we can't see, but you are welcome to share as well. Tom says post-mortem role play to define critical people. Very good. So Tom, I'm assuming post-mortem means after something went wrong, or maybe when something went right. I don't know.
No, more sitting down with like a leadership team, and a year from now, our company failed. We collapsed. We went out of business. Why?
Oh dear.
Pulling that back into defining, well,
Tom
so-and-so
got
left,
interrupted
or
there.
so-and-so
Who else
left,
has
or,
one they want to share?
and then that will help define, where the pain points
There
are.
you are. Okay, good. Yeah, because the leaders on your team are going to know what those pain points are. So helping to find out those critical people is important, because they're not just at the top level for sure. All right. Anybody else got one you want to share? Bob's on here. Assess the organization structures and processes assigned to people to identify single points of failure. Then assign cross or gap training to staff to mitigate that single point of failure. Thanks, Bob. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's a great next action to take. Did I just hear somebody? Alrighty then. So this is a rich topic. We could spend days diving into all these different areas that we talked about today, but we can wrap it up if there's no other questions. And remember, we will have another Focused Conversations webinar in February. And so watch your inbox and LinkedIn. We'll post it and send it to you. And if you haven't been with us before, make sure you do opt in so we can send you the next invite. Okay, but if you've been with us before, we already have you on our list. All right. Well,
Laura Murphy, did you have a question?
I did. A real quick clarification question. One of the great things that you were listing off on, being as prepared as possible, and I may have misunderstood this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it was more or less like a pipeline for replacement, right? And I was just wondering if you had any suggestions for that, because that's such a good tangible takeaway. So is there any suggestions for that pipeline? I realize.
Yes.
big question.
Yeah, it is a big question. Some of that comes into overall workforce planning, right? Because so when I think about a pipeline, I think about not just the current people in my business or in my organization. That's where you start. Yes, you want to have hopefully successors within your organization to take on roles, but your pipeline can also be, you know, what are other ways I could fill this gap on an interim basis, if I had to, and that could be I say you could borrow the talent. You could borrow the talent from, you know, another organization that maybe, you know, that you could, you know, bring in a temp or bring in a contract person for.
But maybe have that already set and ready prior to anything happening.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's that. And then even it's also looking at, I use this a lot in larger organizations for diversity within your workforce as well. Do you have a good diversity of talent, both, you know, not just the age, race, those sort of things, but do you have diversity of thought? And so as you're thinking about that, you know, again, it's planning your pipeline and planning future hires that you might bring in that would also bring that into your pipeline of capability.
Thank you for clarifying that. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, let's end with key takeaways. Laura, you got one for us?
Well, yeah, it's that same thing I'm going to do, which is adding that success profile to the job description. That's gold right there. I think that says so much, and it helps us helps us build that pipeline, really.
Does.
Todd, how about you? Key takeaway?
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's a good one to keep front of mind.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm mute. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
All right, here I am. I like the success profile idea. It's taking a look at the positions and what's the perfect vision for that position rather than just a job description or KPIs. I've never really thought about that. And, you know, 40 years of doing it, it's something new. But you know, planning always improves the process. I always take away something from the Navy SEALs about their 6 Ps is perfect planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yes.
So you know, and it's the truth. If you have a good plan, you're destined for success. If you
No kidding.
Yeah.
Because if you have a plan, you can easily shift, but you don't have a plan, you're always like, not going somewhere specific, right? You're just
That's it.
going along, right? Very good. Who else have we got here? Christina, are you still on? Nope, she had to leave. Let's see, who else do we got? Bob, you got any key takeaway for us?
Sorry, I had glitches with my camera, so it's off. Yeah, well, it was one thing kind of going with single point. When I used to work in the past in more R&D, and Kamala really kind of hit on it. She talked about diversification of skills. That's part of the idea, is getting people to do things that just aren't in their lane. And it's really interesting because we used to approach technological development by creating multidisciplined teams, diversified teams. In other words, if you're building software, you don't just have software engineers. You might bring in someone that's a data scientist or a mechanical engineer. That's the same thing in the job process. Don't just, because you're just an accountant or a bookkeeper, doesn't mean that's just all you do. What else can you do? That is also a thing to success, but multidiscipline approach it's pretty powerful.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice. I love that insight.
It allows you
All
to
right.
plug those people in to a lot of different other
Correct.
needs you have.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome time spending with you this hour. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you at the next one. Have a great day.
Everyone,
Thank
enjoy
you.
being with
Thanks.
you.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, just the three of us left.
Laura, you're on mute.
I just wanted to stay on long enough to say great job. And did you want me to stay on longer to give any feedback or no?
Well, if you have it, we'd love to have it, but if you
Yeah.
gotta go, that's totally fine.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to